All right, guys, we'll get started. Thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate you. I know it's been a tough year on everybody. It's been a strange, surreal year. My name is Greg Guyette. I'm going to talk about AgPilotX, our GPS system, and guidance system, and talk a little bit of tracking and some other things today. We've got a collection of speakers up here as well that'll come out and talk a little bit about some of the different things that we're interacting with, some of our efforts in the past year, where we're going with AgPilotX and where we're going with the system and what we're doing for features. So I encourage you guys, ask questions, speak out. We are live streaming everything, and this will be available to others. So if you know anybody that wants to watch it live or anybody that wants to see it down the line, we'll have it available for anybody and everybody. So I would ask, anytime we're asking a question or you bring something up, let's just be sure we've got the attention of our live stream and everybody can hear it. So yeah, I encourage everybody, as usual, when we come out to these things, a big part of coming to these things is talking to people and communicating our message. But a bigger part of what we get out of this, of course, is the response, right? Is the feedback. So that's critical for us, and it's critical for what we're doing in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years. Is where's the heart? Where should we be moving these things? Over the years, we've been able to add a lot of really great features. They've come slower than we'd like. We've learned a lot. We're kind of building a new guidance system. It's wireless. It's Apple-based. It's a lot of things that are new, and we're reliant on pieces of this from others like Apple and their operating system that really makes us compromise what we can do because we've got to jump through hoops to do that. So there's been good, there's been bad, and it's been a very interesting few years. But as we come along, this is going to be our 4th season with AgPilotX. We did our initial season 3 years ago, and we've had 2 years of selling the product, and so this will be our 4th year. So it's come a long way, but we still got a lot to do, and we're going to talk about those things. So I encourage you guys, give us feedback, because that's how we dictate how we set our priority list. It's based on guys telling us, hey, we really like to see this, or hey, why aren't you guys looking at this? And with an Apple product, we got it gives us the opportunity to work with a lot of interesting cutting edge technologies and a lot of things like cameras and other stuff. So really encourage you guys, give us some feedback, tell us what you think. Of course, come see us at the booth. Just talking a little bit about Insero. Insero is the company. That's something that a handful of us started. Now, it was now 7 years ago. This will be our 7th season. 6 years ago, this will be our 7th season. So Insero's been around for a while now. I can't believe that when I say it, but we started. A handful of us used to work for Satlock, and then we have David Duell that worked for Del Norte, so we're steeped in guidance systems, and that's kind of been our professional career. It's been based on that. And Insero has a lot of people that came from the Satlock world and the Del Norte world. So lots of good experience on our team. Now I'm just coming through my 25th year of, as you can see, my white beard now starting to show my age. And I've been in this industry, been in this market for a long time, and it's because I love it, and this is what I live for. As you know, as I mentioned, the AgPilotX system, we're going to go through this. We'll talk about the components. We're going to get a chance to pass some things along and pass them out. We've got the system up here running. We're going to get a chance to run through the app. I'll turn it over to Anthony in a bit, and he can run through the app. We'll just connect it here, and you can see us run through it. I encourage you guys, our app is free. You can download it. You can put it on your iPhone, your iPad. It's what's really nice about the product. It can run from any Apple device, and any Apple device can connect to directly to that light bar. If anybody wants to do it with your phone, afterwards, or in our booth, come in, download the app, connect to the system, you'll interact with it. So it's pretty neat to do it, and it gives us a lot of strength in our product, because if anything ever does happen to the iPad, you can take the phone out of your pocket, you can get another iPad, anything to connect to it and keep working. That's one thing that's about being so downsized. It's a very easy system to install. Given our history, we built components that take some time to get them installed, get them set up, get them wired in. And the beauty of this product is it's only 3 components, right? What you see up on that screen, that's it. It's the iPad, the light bar, and the hub. There's no more to it. And we'll be talking a bit about flow control, which of course you can plug a meter and a valve. We'll talk about the meter, we have one up here, directly into the hub and get flow control. But this is the extent of the system, right? This is everything. And when we talk about communication, the light bar has the antenna, the GPS antenna on it, so there's not even a remote light bar, unless you're running our helicopter system. We'll talk a minute about that. But the wireless connection, where the hub is talking to the light bar wirelessly, and you're just getting power to the light bar, that's really all you got to do. And then, of course, the iPad or iPhone connects wirelessly directly to the light bar. So it's very simple. We do get a lot of questions where people ask us, well, what about the connections? So and just so you know, a lot of people don't care, but we're Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi connection is between the hub and the light bar. So that's a Wi-Fi chip in both places. It's really doesn't have anything to do with the traditional Wi-Fi in the sense that you're getting internet. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just a chip. A Wi-Fi chip is just a way to move a lot of data wirelessly, right? That's why they use it for the internet, because it's heavy lifting. It does all the heavy lifting. So that's the communication that goes back and forth from the hub to the light bar. And then we're Bluetooth from the iPad to the light bar. So that's the data coming across with Bluetooth. Bluetooth is great for streaming. It's great for getting that data across live. But what Bluetooth is bad at is heavy lifting. If I want to move a big file, Bluetooth doesn't do that very well. That's why the light bar and the hub are connected to a Wi-Fi chip back and forth. It doesn't require the internet. We get a lot of questions, people saying you have to have cell coverage, you got to be connected. No, of course not. The system doesn't need any of that. The Wi-Fi connection is just point to point. Of course, if you are connected with the iPad, it adds to the experience, right? You get background maps, they just come across. You don't need to load them, they just automatically come across. And that's relying on the internet, right? So if you want to see background maps, you need to be connected. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. We'll talk a little bit about logging software. We're going to get into our AgPilotX product, which is what we use to view the logs. It's also what we're using to unveil this year to do real-time tracking, so you can watch your systems as they go. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll get into some of the future things that we're doing. And that's why we've got a couple of people up here that can talk to some of the things that we've done in 2020 and some of the things that we're just putting together for 2021. Just talking a little bit more about the light bar. Bill, can you get that, or Anthony, just pass that around? I'd love for you guys just to take a look at it. As you mentioned, the GPS is on board, so what's a couple things that are unique about this light bar? Of course, it's wireless. You just need to get power to it, that's it. And then it communicates to the hub and the iPad at the same time, one through Wi-Fi, one through Bluetooth. The GPS antenna is on it. We use both GPS and GLONASS. And what does that mean? It just means you double your satellites. And why that's so good for what we're doing in aircraft is, anybody that's had a system where you come around a turn and you out-turn it, and it jumps a little bit, jumps back. It's because you're losing satellites and you're getting satellites. Well, the fact that we're using GLONASS and GPS, instead of at any given time looking at 8 satellites, 9 satellites, and maybe cutting them down to 5 or 6 in the turn, double that, right? So you're, at any given time, you're looking at 16, 17, 18 satellites. And when you go up the turn, you're still looking at 10 or 11 satellites. So it's much less likely for it to jump out and come back. You're much less likely to out-turn it when you double your number of satellites. And of course, that was a big feature that we wanted to bring across with our GPS engine in that light bar, was the ability to see both things. That, incidentally, for anybody that cares, that same receiver does have the ability to use Galileo, which is the European GNSS system, right? When we talk about GPS, that's the United States-based GNSS system. GLONASS is the Russian-based GNSS system. Galileo is the European-based GNSS system. Beidou is the Chinese-based GNSS system. That receiver is capable of picking up all that. And they're going to be coming online here over the next few years. So the nice thing about that, when you add satellites to your picture, you just get a more, you start getting a more narrow accuracy. So now we're talking about 1.5 foot accuracy at any given time. And that means repeatable accuracy, meaning if I come back, I'm going to be about 1.5 foot to where I was. And of course, it's whilst corrected GPS and GLONASS. And so as you add your number of satellites, you just start making that area smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's a high precision GPS board that gives you 1.5 foot accuracy, and that will get better over time. And everything's internal to that. We have had a few changes to the light bar over time, and you guys are passing around. One thing you'll notice, what we did have, we've had some issues over the years. We've learned a lot with the GPS antenna on the light bar. What we noticed is we were getting cracks, hairline cracks in the front end of that light bar. So we built this guard to protect it. And anybody who's got a system, we can just slip these on right over the top of them and protect them. Because although that antenna is aircraft worthy and it's used on aircraft, this was the first time it was used in aerial applications, crop testing. So it was a different environment. We sent the antennas off to have them protected by the manufacturer, and they said, yeah, they're getting bombarded by lots of little things. And so that was a little bit different than the aircraft market they had. So they suggested that we build a little guard for it, and that's what we did. So yeah, we can retrofit any of those. And of course, now we put a little shield on it so we don't get those little hairline cracks in the front of it. Because you get a hairline crack in the front of it, eventually water's going to seep through it. Any questions or any comments or any feedback on anything?
That Wi-Fi connection that you're talking about sounds similar to the connection you'd have with the Stratus 3 or something for your port flight. But which raises a question if that's what someone's using for ADS-B in information. Are they loaded up and they can't add another Wi-Fi connection, or can you add multiple connections Wi-Fi, more than one device?
Yeah, the question is about Wi-Fi, about using up Wi-Fi ports, so if you're using something that is using Wi-Fi. This really doesn't have anything to do with that because it's point-to-point, so they're all self-sufficient. They don't absorb any Wi-Fi connection from anywhere else. So this is just strictly for communication between a hub and a light bar, and it doesn't have any interaction.
So it's not going to the iPad for that light bar, and okay, I got you.
No, so if you need a Wi-Fi connection for that light bar, that can be used elsewhere. You don't need to touch that Wi-Fi for any reason. And Anthony's just saying we've got customers that are running that setup right now. So yeah, we don't do anything with that Wi-Fi connection. We could. We actually, with our ground product, we actually do a little bit of that, but it's just gets messy because Apple requires that you have confirmation, and that's the biggest reason we don't want to use Wi-Fi connections between our system and the light bar. Is just because it always, with Bluetooth, it doesn't ask any questions. You just, once you connect, it'll automatically connect. Wi-Fi doesn't do it that way. I mean, it's the operating system of Apple that doesn't allow you to do it. It could do it, but Apple says, nope, we don't want anybody grabbing a hold of Wi-Fi unless they know they're getting it. So they allow the Bluetooth connection to happen in the background. They don't allow that Wi-Fi connection to happen. They require that you have that handshaking and that you confirm it on the operating system. And incidentally, we do some, we bring all the data across to the app now, so you see it on the app, and all the data is there, but it's not the hardcore log. The log is all kept on that light bar, so it's all internal to that. And it holds all your logs, and it holds all your logs for life. You'll never fill up the space that's on there. So those logs remain on that light bar forever. So you can delete them off the iPad, but they'll always be on the light bar.
And that'll never slow down the processing on it?
No, they're just, number one, they're kind of just archived, so the system doesn't even, it wouldn't know if it was 20 gigs or 0 gigs. It wouldn't even know the difference if they're there. Because it doesn't really, it's just a storage location. So it just sits it there. Yeah, there's no real operating system on that storage device. It's just, they're just put there. And so, that's another way that it's unique. All that data is on there. Now, for those guys that do know our system, we do make a Wi-Fi connection when we want to pull that data from that light bar. So when you're sitting there, you want to pull all those logs across. We make a Wi-Fi connection to do that, just simply because that's the heavy lifting part. We couldn't do it through Bluetooth. It just take forever. And in fact, we used to do that with our ground product. It took forever. So we kind of got away from that. Now, for anybody that knows a little bit about Bluetooth, Bluetooth 5.0 was just released. Apple just brought it out in all their new iPads, all their new iPhones a year ago now. We're moving to Bluetooth 5.0. Actually, next year, that light bar will have Bluetooth 5.0. What's the benefit of Bluetooth 5.0? Heavy lifting. So it does a lot like a Wi-Fi chip does. It'll allow me to move heavy logs, big logs, without slowing me down. So what we're going to be able to do once we implement that Bluetooth 5.0 is we can move the logs automatically over to the iPad, and we don't need to ask any questions. So we just, in the background, while you're doing your activities, we can just sit there and throw it across, so it comes across to the iPad. So now it's on the iPad, the full log. Right now, as it stands, the app shows where you sprayed, but it's actually not the full log. It's not all the satellites you were looking at. There's lots of detail that go into that log. But next year, that's something we're going to have with Bluetooth 5.0. The whole log will come across, and will be sitting on the iPad.
Would that be a firmware update or a hardware replacement?
That's a hardware replacement because it's a Bluetooth 5.0 chip, and so you have to have an iPad that's got Bluetooth 5.0, and you got to have a light bar that's got Bluetooth 5.0. So that's a hardware change. The iPads we've been sending out for the last year have 5.0 because everything now coming from Apple has it, and the light bars that we send out next year will all have Bluetooth 5.0. It's going to take us we're just getting the hardware done, so it's going to take a little bit with the software, but then if you've got the hardware, then it's just a firmware update. And our firmware updates, of course, are very simple, right? We broadcast them remotely, so when you have a firmware update, they just pop up on the screen and say you got a firmware update, you hit a button and it updates. Updates your light bar, updates your screen. So that's another great thing about how we do things wirelessly is we can send all software updates, firmware updates over the air. So, and we know what you have. We know if you downloaded it or not. We can tell if it came on the system because you're connected. So we know what firmware versions people have. So if we get a call, somebody is talking to us and say, well, we're running an old firmware version, we should probably update. Or what we typically do, what we always do, is we just mass broadcast. So if you've got the system, you just see it just pops up when you're connecting. So you got an update. You don't have to do it. You can decide not to do it, but for all intents and purposes, you should always update with the latest and greatest. And it just makes our life a lot easier because traditionally we had to do that through USB sticks and sending software, and it's ugly, it's messy. You get all kinds of old versions out there. It just causes complications. And the ability just to send it out and press a button has been a lifesaver for us. And it's been great for our customer base. It's just so simple to get it, so simple to update. Any other questions or comments? Or?
Great. Can you manipulate the files like you can with certain software programs and other units where I download a certain field and I want to manipulate within that file different things, application rate, volumes, stuff like that?
No, you can't manipulate the files. I mean, you can't, so the question was, can you manipulate the files that exist? You can't change those files. Now, we are adding a piece to our AgPilotX software, which is our log viewer, where you can shift the spray on the off. So you can shift that back and forth. And just, that's, we do that. It's something we've always done in the GPS history. And the reason you need to shift that spray on and that spray off is just simply because when you're moving at 150 miles an hour or close to that, and you're running different switches, if you run like a micro switch, it's about a 0.2 second shift in that from what is actually happening in the airplane and what is actually coming out. If you're running a pressure switch, it's typically more accurate. Typically, it's about 0.05 seconds delay, but a micro switch is about 0.2 seconds. And that's considerable moving at 150 miles an hour. So you get the castle heading, and so we do correct for that, but that's really the only thing you can do to manipulate that data or alter that. Otherwise, it's just it's everything that's in the log.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on your tracking? So if I've got an airplane out working in a field and I'm back in the office.
Yeah, the question is, can we elaborate on tracking? Just in a little bit, we'll get into talking about that in more detail, because that's something we're going to be releasing here in just a few months. We've been doing tracking in our ground-based product now for 4 years, so we've got really good experience with it, and we've learned a lot. Like anything, you get a lot of bugs when you first come out, and that's the nice thing about what we're doing with our air product. You guys don't have to have that 4 years of bug fixes, right? Because we've already done that, so we're pretty good with tracking. So we'll talk more to that and what you can do with it and how you use it. Anything else? Any other questions? Just on what we were talking about with the light bar and GPS. Just a few other things on the light bar. We do have special light bars that are for night vision goggles. We have all green light bars. So if anybody's interested in that, we have a handful out in the field. We have 5 or more. Okay. We have about 10 out in the field, and we've got more for those boards in-house. So if anybody has any interest in that, they're available. We also have a helicopter light bar, which we don't have a helicopter light bar in here, do we? Oh, it's in that box. No. Oh. We didn't bring the helicopter light bar here, but we got it in our booth. Here, the dimensions, it's pretty small. It's actually, the board that's in there that you see up on the screen is actually just half this light bar board. So if you just, that's all we did, is cut it in half. So instead of having 4 displays, you got 2 displays. Instead of having all those lights across the top, you've got half those lights. And the GPS is in there. The antenna is remote and plugs into the back. You can use any antenna. If you've already got an antenna on it, there's no real reason to change it. All GPS antennas, all high-quality GPS antennas that are used in all the different guidance systems that are out there for aerial applications, they all work with our systems, and they pick up low pass, no problem. So you can plug those directly into the back of that helicopter light bar. 2.2 pounds. So when we're talking about size and weight for a helicopter system, you're talking 2.2 pounds for the light bar. The hub is 1.8 pounds, and the iPad's about 1.9 pounds. So, and you got a couple pounds of cabling, but that's it. That's the extent of it, right? You can use an iPad mini. We do have, some helicopter users that want a smaller screen. Like I said, you can use a phone. Phone's a little bit compromised. The app is a little bit different. If anybody's had the chance to run our app on a phone, it works. It's good, but it's compromised, and it runs a little bit different. You don't have all the options in one place. So yeah, you can download it yourself, see what it looks like. It's a little bit different. It's not as it's not as nice as what you have in an iPad or even an iPad mini, but they can be run with the system. Other things with the helicopter light bar, we do have night vision helicopter light bars. Everything's the same. GPS is internal to it. Everything's right there. It's a pretty small box, pretty lightweight box. Talking a little bit more about the hub. So this is the hub. Some of the nice things about this hub is just the connectors that come into the back. All our lives we've been dealing with Canon plugs and large plugs that are hard to get through. They're hard to pass through the firewall, hard to get around. In fact, that was one of our biggest challenges back in previous life when we were trying to do STCs and TCs, was getting those Canon plugs around and getting them through firewalls and doing things like that. With this hub, it's just the wires come straight into the back of it. All the systems do come with little plugs that you can plug them into if you don't want to stick the raw wire in there. Just makes a more secure connection and make sure there's no cross connections that might cause damage. But it's very simple. Everything goes in the back of that. So you can plug the light bar into that if you want to get power from the hub. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's wireless. Even the dimming is wireless. So if you had the light bar connected through a different power source, it wouldn't make any difference. You could still use the dimming capability of the hub, even if you were powered somewhere else. And so the other connectors that come into the back of that, if you've got a valve and meter, we'll talk a little bit more about the meter. We can use existing valves and meters. We have the ones we like to use. Of course, from the valve side, we use KZ valves. They're pretty standard. Most people use KZ valves just because they're really high quality, really good company. The meters we'll talk about more in a minute when we start talking about flow control and why we use the meters that we use. The charging circuit goes into the back of the hub. One thing we have had, these are, you'll hear me talk about the ups, you'll hear me talk about the downs with using an Apple-based product. One of the negative things about an Apple product is we don't learn a lot about their new releases, hardware-wise, until they release them, right? We're an Apple distributor. We're recognized by Apple. They're a good partner of ours, great partner to have. They have to authorize all our apps before they're released to the general public. Great group to have, looking at that stuff and making sure you're not doing something that will cause crashes or doing something foolish. But with the latest iPad, they've changed their charging circuit. Their charging circuit is a smart charging circuit. And we built the system initially just to run with their older iPad, which we just built a pretty dumb charging circuit, and it worked. We said, well, we don't need to do much more. It works well. The new charging circuit that they got there is a little more intelligent. So now, when the Apple iPad dies, we can't bring it back to life. We've got to charge it in a wall, or now we just got these that we put out with all the systems. They plug into the back of the hub. They're just, your old cigarette lighter style connector, and that has the technology that was built with those adapters we put in there are Apple approved. So that's a big part of it, is you got to have that smarts. We are building the hub to have the intelligence in it, so you can plug back into that hub back there. But in the meantime, now we just go through these adapters because they have the smarts in them. So as we build that technology into the hub, it'll be there, sometime next season. But in the meantime, we just run it through these. It brings it back from the dead now, and everything's fine. The hubs as is don't bring a hub. They don't bring the iPad back from the dead. It'll keep charging it. It'll keep it charged. But if it ever dies, you're a little bit pooped about getting it back until you get it into something. That's why we say anybody who needs one of these, got a system, let us know. We can make sure you get those so you never have that issue again. And Yeah, and that's part of the life with Apple is learning that stuff. It's good because it's a smart device that has a smart charging circuit, but it's something that threw us a curveball and causes us to make changes in the hardware.
Great.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the circuit that we're putting into it is Apple specific. It's again, that having a partner like Apple, you've got to have something very specific. And that's why it's taken a year for, because that came out with the new iPads, for everyone to react, because nobody could react until they released the hardware. So you got to build it around Apple specifically for them, and you got to understand and learn their smarts and what they're telling the circuit. So that's part of what we're doing is we're taking that circuit that's Apple specific and putting that inside the hub. So it's just taking time.
Great. Great.
Yep.
So this USB port on here is not for charging.
The USB port on the front is not for charging. The USB port on the back is for charging. So that's a good point. What's the USB port on the front for? We put the USB port on the front for downloading logs. So how you can download logs, you can do it wirelessly. We recommend you do it wirelessly. You can just email them straight from the iPad. You just touch which ones you want to send. You can send them right from the iPad. We suggest doing that because that's really simple. But you do have some old school people, pilots, that just say, don't want to do that. I want it on a USB stick. Technology-wise, we're just trying to get away from USB sticks. We didn't put like our ground product. We don't have any USB stick on it at all. And it was, we had so much pushback from, an older school customer base that just wanted that USB stick. It's kind of one of our regrets with our ground product that we didn't put that in there because we had so much demand. We didn't think there would be so much demand. That's why we put that in the front of the light bar. So you can't stick the USB stick in there. What we do when you do that is we just automatically recognize the USB stick is in place. We provide every system with a USB stick, so you've got one that'll work well with it. When you plug it in, it just automatically recognizes it, moves the log from the light bar to the stick. So you can still use a USB stick. You're still that way to move files.
But you say on the back you can plug it into charge.
Yes.
Your iPad into
Yeah.
there.
So yeah, and I'll try to maybe be a little bit more clear about that. The back is the charging port. So if you have an Apple device that's charged, that has some charge on it, you can plug it in no problem. But the new iPads, because of their smart circuit, they're looking for they're looking for a certain response when they're dead. They don't just accept I plug it in and put power to it. Apple says, no, we're not doing that anymore. We have to recognize you on the other side, that you're trying to bring us back from the dead, and we got to do some handshaking, and we got to say, okay, you can bring us back from the dead. So that part is, and it's just with the new iPad. The older iPads never had that, but the latest and greatest iPad has that. So it kind of threw us for a loop. We're like, wow, our hub can't bring the new iPad back from the dead. So we got to build that smart circuit. We got to put that in there. So it's taken us some time to do that. And so that's why in the interim, this will bring it back from the dead. You just plug this back to the hub, plug it into here, and it'll bring it back from the dead. The hub as it is will charge. To charge it, as long as there's some charge on it, you're fine. But if it dies, you got to have this to bring it back from the dead. And hubs in the future, we will rectify that problem. But it's just something that just takes time, and we just that's the like I said, it's the downside of working with Apple is you're not in on what they're doing, but there's so many upsides that we'll take the downside. Yep.
I've had a problem like if I don't take my iPad home and charge it, it's 50% dead for my iPad, and I start that day, and I plug it into the charger from the hub, it won't keep up. Before my day gets done, I'm out of iPad.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the question was about you've got a hub that won't keep up. So there's another bit we learned. The original circuit we built that we've since changed doesn't keep up with new iPads. We can alter that hub and put in a improved charging circuit that will indeed charge it. So yes, with our original hubs, or I shouldn't say original, with our hubs that are a year, we've got the serial numbers for which ones had it. With the new iPad, they don't keep up. They give it some charge, but they don't keep up with it as well as we'd like. Again, we just learned that when the new iPads came out. We do have a circuit that will charge those. So we've actually, well, in the end, we'll have 3 different circuits. We have the original, of course, that was good for the old iPads. The new iPads requires that to be updated. So we've got the new one that we've come out with that will charge those new iPads with the existing hub. And then we got the third one, which is coming out in next year, which will bring them back from the dead. So if you've got an iPad that doesn't keep up, the hub doesn't keep up with charging the iPad, because we keep them on and we turn them on full intensity, and we want our customers to use them that way, and that kills batteries very easily. Get your hub back to us. We can change that circuit out, and we can rectify that problem. So it will start charging those and keep it increasing in charge.
What time next year are you thinking for the bringing back from the dead circuit?
Well, for now, we put this in with everything, so that does it. Inside the hub, it's a good question. We're just, we have the circuit, we're testing it now. It probably puts it 3 or 4 months out.
Okay.
But right now, and that's if everything goes well. We have setbacks, which probably a 25% chance we get setbacks, but 75% chance we have that ready in about 3 or 4 months. Any other questions? Any other comments on that?
Just one question on the best screen for daylight use with the iPads.
Yeah, so we provide every one of our systems with iPad Pros. That's the reason we put iPad Pros. That's top of the line, right? It doesn't get any better than that. And the latest ones, something the iPad Pro does, which is better than all the other iPads, is high brightness. Right? You can look at an iPad. We're in Arizona. You take them out in the Arizona sun. There's never a time that you can't see it clearly, right? With the new iPad Pros. They have better heat dissipation for overheating, right? They just do a better job with it. They have more processing power, right? So we like that. Do you have to have that? Nope. Can you use an older iPad? Yep. Can you use an iPad mini? Yes. And there's, the new iPad minis, like when we don't like using these iPad Pros that are out. The previous iPad Pro that was out, now that goes back about 4 years. Previous to that, you can use those older iPads that are now 4 and 5 years old. We don't like to because their brightness is not great. Like the iPad mini, in fact, just till this past year, we really recommended against it. We said you can run it, but they're just, if you've got an iPad mini that's 2 years old even, they're not very bright. But their latest one they came out with last year, their 2019 model, was good on brightness, was very good on brightness. So iPad Pro is the best. We really recommend that. That's what we supply with every system. You don't have to do that, but it's recommended. And if you're going to run an iPad mini, just be sure it's the latest version that Apple puts out there. Again, it can be older, but it's just it's not as good, especially with the light intensity. That really compromises your experience with the system. Anything else? Any other comments? Feedback? We talked through that on most of the hub. Anything I missed on the hub? Yeah, and of course, what I didn't say, so you've got, of course, power in, you've got power out to the light bar if you want to use it, you've got flow control, so you plug in the meter and the valve directly into it, and you've got your switches. So you plug your swap advance, your swap decrease, your spray on off, all going directly into the back of that hub. So that really details everything. And we also have CAN connections that we'll talk about for some of the third-party input. We have serial inputs as well. You have serial inputs that can go in the back of the hub. We have serial inputs that can go in the back of the light bar. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we start talking about third-party Talk to me about the install. The Apple product, we talked a lot about that. I think we covered everything we really wanted to cover with the Apple product. We'll pass this around. This is just a bracket we use, custom-made bracket we make. You can use any bracket for the iPad. They sell 1 million of them through Amazon. Sporties has them. They've even got some that have fans on the back of it, and they've got a lot of interesting installations for iPad mounts. We use that one. It's flexible. It's backward compatible with all the previous versions. We're hoping it's forward compatible. It screws out and in on sides and the top, and just a little custom mount we built. Don't have to use it. It's just convenient because it's just real easy to get an iPad in and out of there. I just mentioned like Sporties. They have some mounts with fans on it. And we get a lot of questions about overheating, and overheating really hasn't been a big problem for us with the iPad Pro. Now, times that we have seen issues, like in helicopters, when the pilot gets out of the aircraft, we do see that it overheats when it's just sitting there baking and it's pointed at the sun. The heat problem really is not from the back of it, so even though you put fans at the back of it, that's not really the problem with the overheat. The problem is the sun hitting the front of that. So as long as we don't really have a problem when you're flying with the sun hitting it, as long as it's straightforward. It's kind of like your phone. When you're out in the sun, as long as you hold it like this, you're fine. If you set it down, where it's facing up, the sun's hitting it, it overheats. So as long as that iPad is facing forward, we see very little issues. And with the issues that we have seen in helicopters when the pilot gets out, we just say, either take the iPad with you, it just pops right out. Just walk away with it so it's not sitting there baking in the sun. Or throw a towel over it. We do have some hoods that we've got. We put in certain situations that you can. You just got to have the room. You can put a hood over it. But you just don't want that sun baking on it when, the inside of that helicopter is cranking up 100, 160, 170 degrees, and the sun is hitting it from the front. So just if you throw a towel over it or take it with you, that really remedies the issue. As I mentioned, our system will work with or without the iPad. The iPad is an interface that just does bring the data across so you can see it, but the system's not really reliant on it. All our devices are smart. They all have computers. They all stand alone. The light bar will run without the hub and without the iPad. The hub will run without the light bar and the iPad. They don't care that the other one's there. Now, of course, all your flow control information, your switch information is coming from the hub, and that's being passed to the light bar, so that's why you want it. But technically, if you stood there with the iPad, you wouldn't need the hub. I've done a lot of demos where I go out with somebody, I don't even plug the hub in. I just plug the light bar in, put power to it, connect with the iPad. It'll come up and tell me I don't have a hub. That's it. It doesn't care. So they're not relying on each other. Now, of course, they want to communicate because that's how the data gets across, but it's not necessary. In fact, if you threw the iPad out the window, it's not going to stop that light bar from working. You're going to finish your job, hit your swath advance, you can continue on. The iPad is just a glorified terminal in that case, just to see what's going on. We talked about them now. We'll get to the app. I'm going to turn it over to Anthony, and he's just going to walk us through the app just so you get a first-hand experience. Again, anybody can download this app, and happy to work with you if you want to try that.
All right, so just kind of want to go over the app a little bit. I know, I've talked to a lot of you guys about this, over the last few years, and so just there's some new features that we have now, but I'll kind of start from the basics for the guys that don't know, and I'll just kind of start from there. So first things first, it's just a standard iPad. So like Greg was talking about, it's regular iPad Pro. So if you're running ForeFlight, weather, any of that stuff, you can still run that. You can even bring the app out back to the main screen, and you can see the light bar down here. It's still running. The iPad is just your interface. So if the iPad goes down or something in the middle of a spray run, it's not going to stop anything. Not going to stop you from logging. It's strictly just your interface. So one thing about the app, all the updates come through the App Store. Just for the guys that have it and the ones that will have the system, just be sure to periodically check the App Store. You can set it to automatically update, but if not, just make sure you check the App Store and make sure you update that as often as we have updates. We do try to send out emails every time we have an update. So if you haven't signed up for our email list yet, I'd recommend just going to AgPilotX.com. First thing that pops up is a little window to put in your email address. You just put it in and hit submit, and you're done. It'll put you on the list. That way, when we do have these updates come out, you get them. We have release notes to tell you what was changed, what was fixed, just to keep everybody updated. So once I go into the app, this is the first screen that pops up, and there's a couple important things here on this screen that I want to just point out. One is the light bar serial number. So if you ever call and have any type of issue, probably the first thing I'm going to ask you for is what your serial number is. Does a couple of things for us. One is we can send updates directly to your unit. So if you're having a specific issue, maybe I'm testing something but I haven't released it yet, I can send it directly to you so you can test it and say, man, that works, fix my problem, and then we know we have some feedback, and then we can eventually release it to everybody. And so right below that, you see where it says tap to update. That means that there is an update available for this light bar. So I just left it up there. I didn't update it yet, just so I could show how it looks. So there's two serial numbers that we talk about. One is the hub, and that's the number with the H behind it. And the other one's the light bar, the one with the L behind it. So real simple. We try to keep those serial numbers the same, but they don't always match, so just keep that in mind. Just because your light bar is 1130 doesn't mean your hub will be also. So they're also on the bottom of them as well, just so you guys know. And then to the right of that is your version number. So that's probably the second question I ask is, what version are you running? What a lot of people will do is just take a picture of this screen right here, and it'll tell me everything that I need to know to see where you're at. So real simple. Like I said, it's just those are little things that a lot of guys don't know until they call. So once I'm on this screen, I just hit tap to connect. It's already connected. So you would just connect to the light bar here, and then go hit the button that says go to map. And so this brings us to your main fly screen. So one thing that's unique about our system is the way that we record our jobs. So like Greg said, everything is, all the logs are recorded in the light bar, but we have a job number associated with each log, and that's these numbers over here. And anytime I start a new job, it asks me a name. So down at the bottom here it says new job. Once I tap that, it'll ask me to name it. So the naming, you can name it whatever you want. If you don't name it anything, it just continues that job 1, job number 2, 3, as long as just keep going up. But if you do like to name your logs, say it's a work order number, a farmer's name, anything like that, it just makes it easier to go back and find it later. If you ever have to come back for that log file, or say you're going to finish half the job today and the rest tomorrow, you can always come back to it really easy just by finding that name. But as you see here, you can select your pattern, swap direction, swap width, shape files. You can add those to the job file here if you'd like. Once you set this up one time, you don't have to set those numbers again. So if you're doing the same swap width, the same pattern every time, you just hit new job and then hit create and start, give it a name if you'd like, and just keep going. So it's not something you have to tap on every single time, every time you do a new job. You don't have to do that. These are just a few of the patterns here. We're actually adding a couple new patterns next year that'll come in with the multi back-to-back and the other one we were.
So we're adding multi back-to-back and we're doing we're actually going to do one that you can just create the perimeter of a polygon. So it's just a way to count acres, so you can actually go out there and just go point, 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 point. We'll create that as a polygon. You can just walk the landscape and tell you the acres.
Will you be
So-
adding expand?
What's that?
Expand?
So the expand pattern, that is on the list to do as well, so.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's lower on our priority list. Expand is because we don't have a lot of guys that ask for it, so we just thought, well, we want that, but we just don't really, we don't have a lot of people telling us. Is that something you use? And anybody else use expand? Is that something that's okay?
Yeah, so that's a perfect example right there. So we only know what you guys tell us. So if there's something, the more feedback we get, the higher that thing, that goes on the priority list. I mean, you guys know we have we talked about 300 plus items on our priority list, or on our main list that we go by. We break it down to top 10 or top 20. But still, as the season gets going, the more feedback we get from that kind of stuff, the more we can, help you guys out. They're not hard things to do. It just takes time. All the engineering work, it may sound simple, one pattern, but that's, a week or two's worth of work. If you got, 50 things, then you're talking 2 years worth of work, just, on one, on just those product features. So, like I said, we have 300 plus things, so they start to stack up, and we will eventually get to all of them. It just takes time. So the more feedback we get from you guys, the better for us. We can help you guys better.
One item I will say, just bring it up, what a customer did one time, and it took me about a year to figure out, is use a different name. We had one customer that was using the same name, we kept going back to the same name, and kept overwriting his previous data. He was telling me, I can't get my old data, I can't see the old jobs. And I was just thinking, it's user error, I couldn't figure it out. And one day he was telling me, well, I called it the same thing that previous job. And of course, dawned on me, don't use the same job, use a new job.
So that's why that number increases. So even if you're not using it, if you're not editing it, changing the job name, it does increase that number every time. So just for that fact right there. So once I hit create and start, now my light bar says set A. I'm ready to go. I can fly to the field, set A, set my pattern down and go. That's all you have to do to set the system up. It's just new job, create and start, and go. And what's nice about that, being able to set that job is I can go back to any of them at any time. So there's this finish button down here in the right-hand corner. What that means is now I'm done with that job. It clears the pattern off, but it's still saved. So it's almost it's saving all that information. So I can come back to any of these previous jobs and just tap on it, hit resume, and it will bring back the pattern I left off on, any of the spray information that's on there, what swath number I left off on, how many acres, how many gallons, all that stuff's there just by hitting that finish button. So, and it's also all saved on the iPad as well. So even if you're in the office and you just want to know that job was complete, you don't have to be connected to the light bar. You can pull that job back up and hit resume. It'll bring back the field back up. You can zoom in, make sure you covered everything, and everything was done. That feature there is really makes it very, very simple to just keep going. You don't have to worry about, did I save that field? Where did I leave off? It's just it's just always there. So like I said, so after your jobs, you have your tiles here on the left side. Once you start a job, that left-hand side transitions to your tiles. All these tiles are interactive, so I can touch any one of these. So where my target rate is, I can touch that. I can type in, say I want to, bump my target rate down. I can change that. Very easy. Try to keep the buttons as big as possible. So it's easier to change that stuff. I can change my pattern or swath width here. I can reset my acres and reset my gallons. One thing on the gallons that we do is when you reset your total, your volume, it will count a load. So every time you come back in, if you hit that reset volume, it'll count another load. And you know, people forget sometimes, and you'll know because it'll just go negative. So if you get back and you're negative 600, then you know you skipped one. So you can just reset it, and it'll add that to the count. Some new things that we added this year are the Autoboom. So we are functional with Autoboom now. We put that in earlier this spring, and so that's been working really well. It's just a subscription code, and Greg will talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But it's real easy to set up. You know, you can just turn it on and off here. You can bring your shapefile in here. These are my shapefiles that I have loaded up here. It tells me which one is on the map at the time, and these are my other ones here right below that. And it'll also tell me if I have one assigned to a job. The reason why assigning a shapefile to a job is important is because when it's assigned to a job, it actually goes to the light bar, and that's what allows us to do Autoboom. We have distance to edge and poly in and out. And so having that shapefile on the light bar allows us to interact with it that way. So when you're doing Autoboom or something like that, you want to assign it to the job when you start that job.
So in essence, the shapefile can just be a visual thing where you just see it on the screen. But if you make it a part of the job, then it becomes an interactive piece that is actually on the light bar.
Also, you can see here it gives you a thumbnail of it. So if you don't know what the name, a lot of times it's just a number. So if you don't know what the name is, you have a little picture of it. So if you're comparing it to a paper map or something, you have that visual reference there as well. Going down the line, there's the next thing we added this year was the drift optimization, and Bill will come up here in a little bit and explain that a little bit more, what we do there. But it's mostly used in vector control, mosquito control applications, but it allows us to offset the swath. So what that does is offsets your swath to based on this information here. So I can enter the wind speed, I can enter the wind direction, and then when I lay my pattern down, it will actually shift it based on a lookup table that Bill has created and we use. So that really allows, it also interfaces with the Ames device, which can bring in all that weather information real time. So it will automatically populate that. Once you lay your pattern down, it will shift everything, and Bill will talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Couple of things that we've added this year is the MVP support. We've had laser altimeter, and the Ames support is new this year. So if you're running any of those, and I'll talk a little bit about the MVP. So we can interface directly to the MVP to put torque and temp on the light bar. The way we do it is when you reach 0 miles per hour, it will automatically pop up. So say if you're coming back in, or if you're just sitting on the ground, it'll pop torque and temp up on the light bar, and it'll stay up there until you reach 80 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour, whatever you set it at. It will stay there, and then it won't come back up until you come back on the ground and hit 0 again. So I think it's actually 5 miles an hour. But once you get back on the ground, it will reset, and so that way you have it real time when you're taking off. So that's the most critical time. You're not looking down, you're looking out at your light bar, and you can get that information real time on the light bar. Anything? If there's any questions too as I'm going through this, just let me know. I'll kind of run through around the bottom row a little bit, and I'll jump into some of the newer features. So just strips of your waypoints. You have your clear here, clear map. Go-to is a good feature that we added not too long ago. You can hit go-to and swath. So I can hit go-to, I can type in my swath number, and it will automatically jump to that swath. The other one is poly. So if you want guidance to a poly, you hit go-to poly and just tap it, and gives you a couple different options. You can zoom to it when it'll just move the map there. Or if I hit guide to, now it's giving me guidance to that poly. So you can see on the light bar, it gives you your distance, your heading, and direction to that waypoint. Yeah, so on the shape files as well, we do read, we've changed the attributes of our shapefile to read not just the acre count that we calculate, but also the planted acres. So if you are using AgSync or Kimman or FlightPlan or any of these that have that information on your work order, we can work that into our shapefile to read that. You can also change the color based on crop type. So if you have a specific crop type that is a specific color, we can read that and change the shapefile to that color. So if you're working next to corn and beans, they will be two different colors. You know, you can tell the difference on the map. And you know, that's one thing we kind of skipped over. But the map itself, you can see it's an imagery. We have background imagery. These are just Apple maps that are loaded on there. It's just like on your phone. If you switch your phone to satellite view, it picks up those maps. You can also switch over to the standard view. So I have some guys that will run off of this just because it's a little less cluttered. If you're in an area where the colors don't match up exactly, you can switch over to the standard view and see everything. Real quick, I just want to go through a few of the other settings. We got our flow management. So this is where the Autoboom is at. There's a couple things here we'll get into later when we talk about flow control, but the aggressiveness being one of them, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But the new features are the show your recent path on the map. So what this does is it will delete your last 30 seconds or 60 seconds of your trail. So if you've got a lot of clutter on the screen, or you're doing short runs, especially with helicopters where you're crossing over them a lot, you can turn that off to where it doesn't keep track. Also, the visual overlap is the other one that we added. So you have visual spray overlap. So it's just a percentage over your swath width that we actually show on the screen. Just keeps the gaps out. And then, of course, you can hide the labels on the map. So if there's any other, I know that's a lot of information real quick, but we'll have it all set up at the booth and come by. Happy to give more detailed information on the app itself. And like I said, if more feedback we get, the better. So the more we hear from you guys, that's the direction we take. So let us know, and I'll turn it back over to Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, and that's with that simulator. Now we actually don't allow you can download the iPad, the app on your iPad or iPhone. We don't let you run the simulator unless you're connected to a light bar. So unfortunately, you can't run that. You can't run it that way. We are planning to put that into place, but again, it's one of those things that's coming down the line. But like I said, anybody that wants to connect or wants to come over even after this is over and just see yourself connect, it's very, very simple. I want to get to some of our other speakers here and give some other guys some chances to talk about some of the things that we're doing. We did talk about shapefile. Anthony was showing some of the shapefile stuff and the shapefile transfers. But one thing that we work with, of course, we just take shapefiles directly. We don't have any special format. We just take shapefiles directly in. We're not doing anything with KMLs, which is Google Earth stuff, or yet, but we will be. That's a big part of some of the helicopters guys. They want to see KML files. They want to create them straight from Google Earth and bring them in. So that's a high priority of ours. That'll be in short order, our ability to do that. But it's really easy to load shapefiles. You just email the shapefile to the iPad. On the iPad, you're just running a standard email. And once you email, you just hit it and share it with AgPilotX. And then you have the ability to see it from the screen where Anthony was showing all those shapefiles listed. So it's really easy. Just email the file to your email on the iPad, share it with AgPilotX, and those will you share 100 files. Some of the groups we're working with, of course, Chemman, AgSync, Surety, FlightPlan Online. We're working with all these different groups. They can read our logs into place. They can take our data and throw it to their screen. Now, one thing that we're taking to kind of the next step is getting to a point where we can take AgSync information and work back and forth. So we've got, right now we're currently in the process of working very closely with AgSync so we can take work orders directly from AgSync and ingest them straight into the AgPilotX. Our goal is really what we call zero button pushes, right? So if you create an AgPilotX and you're logged in, we allow a login, an AgSync log, or a shared login on the AgPilotX app. And if you're logged in with the same account on both ends, it just means when I create that work order in AgSync, I can see it on my AgPilotX. So I can just pick from the list that's being created in AgSync. And then likewise, that data is connected. So number one, the as-applied data, or your work or your log, is being uploaded to the cloud and it's being shared with that account with AgSync. So it goes back. So we've got the two-way communication. Create an AgSync, bring it across. So I wanted to give Wayne a chance just to talk a little bit about, our relationship and a little bit more about the movement. And David Eady is going to get a chance to talk a little bit more in detail with some of the things that we're going to be working with some of his efforts. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Wayne Schmidt with Reagan Slingshot. We own the AgSync product line. AgSync is a work order management, logistics, dispatch software. It's also used for mapping. So it's about all that to make operations more efficient. Also lets you connect with third parties like your ag retailer, so it allows them to send orders to you and for you to get completion information back to them. So like Greg was talking about, we've got the integration coming out this spring, which will basically allow you, when you schedule the work orders in AgSync, to send it to AgPilotX. It's going to load up job information, shape files, and then completion, you're going to get the completion information round trip back. It's going to have the as-applied information. And it's going to trigger our notifications. So if you got your growers or retailers set with notifications, they'll get the text message or email with the completion information, applicator information, and weather information, and products, EPA numbers, reentry, PHI, protective equipment, all that good stuff. So in theory, you should be able to have your customers invoiced with the as-applied map before their airplane even gets back to the runway. Any AgSync users here right now? Okay. If y'all got any questions, we're at booth 806. Also, we're doing a session here tomorrow morning too, or you can catch us after this.
Yeah, and the trick is, with AgSync, that's one thing when we were a different lifetime ago when we were building a product. The limitations of like taking work orders and putting them on systems, it really comes in the connectivity, right? The ability to be connected, and that's really the restriction. If you're not connected, or if it's very difficult to connect to the cloud, what makes it very difficult to communicate with a group like AgSync? Because if you got to jump through a bunch of hoops, you kind of lose all, pilots just aren't going to tolerate that. So again, it's that zero button push mentality. So that's why, of course, our connectivity is driven through our iPad, right? And it's real simple to connect an iPad or iPhone, and your iPhones are already connected, iPads are already connected. So that gives us that engagement to the cloud, which gives us the engagement to AgSync without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. Once you log in both accounts in both places, it makes it really easy. And so that's a significant edge we have with our product line over everybody else's, the ease at which you can be connected and be attached to a group like AgSync. So again, zero button pushes. Create stuff there, see it here. I finish stuff here, and it automatically uploads to partners like AgSync. So it makes the two-way communication very simple, and at the end of the day, I can just be looking at my AgSync stuff and going about my business. So yeah, I did want to get a chance to turn it over to David to talk a little bit more about some of the efforts that we've got going forward. It's kind of along these same lines. And David, of course, has been running AgSync and verifies very well in touch with that communication capability and the need for that and the need to make it easy.
Thank you, Greg. Anyways, I was looking at these maps and it brings back memories. Remember back in 2006 when we started fungicides? Can everybody hear me okay? And the hardest part we had is getting the pilot to the right field. and making sure the field got sprayed. You remember those days? I remember one time I had a pilot come back and he sprayed something like 3,000 acres of the wrong fields. We did the as-applied maps to find out where he went, and then there was a lot of conversations after that. That was a big deal, getting the pilot to the right field and proving that he sprayed the field. So that's what AgSync was developed from, is to help people get to right fields and have it completed with the application data. Anyways, I'm here because I'm also involved with Verify. Some of you use Verify GPSs. I wanted to touch base with you what's going on there, and what we're going to do is there's really no need for 3 or 4 GPS manufacturers in the small market we have. I looked at everything that was out there and decided that the best thing for us to do is join forces with somebody like Greg with AgPilotX and the people they've got behind them, and the software engineers and the ability they have to create these new products is what we need as the industry. So to me, is the best thing forward. What we're going to do with Verify GPS, if anybody is using those, Greg graciously worked out a deal with us. Talk to me afterwards. We have a special deal for any GPS, the Verified GPS users that want to upgrade to this Pilot X. But anyways, we got together with Greg about 2 months ago. We're going to join forces with the software that Verify has developed, which was at that point in time is actually the industry leader for the things we were doing by moving files back and forth electronically. See, we don't even land the airplanes anymore. We send files to the airplane while it's out flying in the field. We hit complete on the GPS, and all that data comes back to the office. We don't have the USB sticks to run around. All that's done automatically. We're going to work with Greg to do the same thing on Pilot X to basically duplicate what Verify is doing. And the primary problem from our end is it takes a lot of logistics, a lot of people to keep a company running. And we just didn't have the manpower or the time to do it. So what we want to do is, I think the best thing is work with Greg and Pilot X and make it the best possible GPS for the industry. So if you have any questions, I'll be around here for the next couple of days. I'd be happy to talk to you about doing an upgrade with your Verified GPS. And anything else?
Nope, that's perfect. Yeah, I've come to learn quite a bit from David and the things that he learned with Verify and like integrating some of those things into what we're doing. And there's no question that the things that David's done with his system, are light years ahead of what the systems are that are out there. Again, I remember in a former life, our ability to try to connect systems through USB ports and manipulate data through USB sticks. And it's so clumsy that it just isn't realistic. It's just not, it's not a way to do it. It's just too difficult. There's too many hoops to jump through, and that's really where what they kind of invented with that whole, put it in AgSync, automatically bring it across to the system, and roll the as-applied back up when you're done with it. Don't require any button pushes. We do have a complete button that we have the pilot push, but that's really just to send a signal to the office saying, hey, I'm done. I'm done with this. You can close the books on it. So that's all being put into place right now. In fact, we've got the first beta version of it ready right now, where we're bringing the data across and pushing it back. And that's another piece, another byproduct of what we're doing is tracking capability. So because we're taking the information in as we're connected from AgSync, and we're putting the information, the as-applied data, back up to the cloud, that's in essence the tracker, right? So that's spitting all that GPS data up in real time. Now we do get a lot of questions. People say, well, what if I'm not, going to areas of no coverage? That's fine. You can be in an area of no coverage for as long as you want. The data just gets queued up. If you were 8 hours, you were out of connectivity area, or you didn't even have a connected device, you were using your hangar Wi-Fi for your connection, that's fine. You can go out, as soon as you connect, it starts uploading the data in real time. So that data comes real time to AgHippo. So if you go into our program, which is AgHippo, you see all that data coming across in real time. You can watch what's happening in the aircraft out there. All spit up 20, 30 seconds. It's just a choice. We just make it make sense. Data. Roll it up every 30 seconds, send that chunk of data up, roll it up the next 30 seconds, chunk that data up. We could, if we had reason to do it every second. It's all our software and you know, all our creation, so we control all that. We could make it faster. And of course, now that it's in the cloud, we can share that data with AgSync. So we just have a communication going back and forth where that data is sitting there in real time. And then AgSync's sitting out there just querying the data from AgHippo. It sends it across, and now your as-applied data is not only in AgHippo, so you can see it in line, it's with AgSync. And you can see all that data from your AgSync and run everything from there and know what's the status of my jobs. I can see them there in real time. All that data is coming back. So it's two-way communication. AgSync through the cloud, through AgHippo, down to AgPilotX. And then back up, you have applied maps, go back up through AgHippo and across to AgSync, so you've got everything that you've done. Any questions or comments on that? We need to keep moving forward. We still got a couple people that need a chance to talk about some of the things. Any other questions or comments or feedback? Some of the things that Anthony's already talked about, we touched on. I want to give a chance to get to you, Bill. Anthony started talking a little bit about spray modeling. So got two more guys that I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. We released spray drift modeling this past year. Bill will talk a little bit more to some of the specifics, but we effectively ran it out this past year. So we did a lot of testing this year. It was a lot of learning. And we still got a little ways to go, but all the major pieces of it are in place. But I want to give Bill a chance to talk to the spray drift modeling, and then we're going to talk a little bit with Troy, maybe some of the things we're working together with him.
Thank you, Greg. My name is Bill Reynolds, who is Leading Edge Aerial Technology. We are an innovation technology company, but we are also a dealer for the AgPilotX. And we really focus in mosquito control. We have a great deal of respect for the community and agriculture and the current dealer network. We very rarely, if ever, have touched or stepped on anybody's toes. But our background is in mosquito control, in the technology company, and droplets for the registration products mosquito use. And one of the problems was where are all the droplets going? About that time, the innovation of the ag disc modeling started, and then we tried to figure out, well, you can only spray this product when the weather is at a wind 10 miles an hour. Tell you where, at your ankles or at 300 feet. So we began to develop these weather systems, and these weather systems started telling us all kinds of things that were going on, even at 60 feet, and 30 feet, and 10 feet, and 300 feet. And it was a disaster, and droplets were going everywhere. So we innovated and created some patented technology in meteorology, and then this vision came into my little brain and said, we got to get that data to the aircraft in real time. And then along came the AIMS, which I think a lot of you have heard about the AIMS. And so how do we stitch all this together? It's a long story short, in 36 years. You have all these technologies available to you. Only 5% of the ag aircraft are using the AIMS technology. And that gives you real-time weather and tells us what to do and where to offset the aircraft. Again, when we're looking, this is diametrically, you want deposition in mosquito control built sighting, we want drift. So we run and chase droplets 15 to 20,000 feet downwind. But the same thing applies for the droplets you want deposition on. How far, how many swaths do I need to move over if I've got a quartering crosswind and the temperature and the physical properties. So a little bit of background there. We are a technology company, and where this fits is under leading edge aerial technology, but we're also a contract service company. We do applications with unmanned aircraft. I know that makes everybody a little itchy and sketchy in here, but I can talk more about that anytime you'd like to. But one of our technologies is drop vision, and this is a key component to figuring out where these droplets are going. And drop vision does swath characterizations of aircraft, droplet sizing, but it also can do way downwind drift of off-target drift monitoring and droplet assessments. So we've done thousands and thousands of manned aircraft as well as unmanned aircraft in terms of characterization. And this is the precision vision unmanned aircraft systems that we make. We write all our own software, and what's coming into focus now is drift optimization into these. So let's talk specifically about the AgPilotX and the drift optimization. You know, we're looking at maximizing droplet spectrum deposition. The target is right below you, or a 60-foot swath with an ag plane, or whether it's your target is 15,000 feet downwind, where we don't want deposition, we want flux. So adult sight, does anybody fly adult sighting in this room? Okay, Rick does up in So you don't want the droplets depositing on the ground. It's the worst thing you can do. You want them airborne as long as you can to come in contact with adult mosquitoes. So all of this technology adds up to where to offset the aircraft for the objective. Do we want to drift into an intended target and maximize the drift through that intended target while minimizing the offsite drift, and vice versa? Where do we want to deposit, and are we going to have any drift that's going to oppose an offset buffer? And so that's what this technology does. So here is the three components. You have the AgPilotX, just represented by the iPad and the software. You have the AIMS 20, and now they have the AIMS 30. But I know one of the big problems with the AIMS was it was a $30,000 price tag. Well, now the AIMS 30 is now below $20,000, so it's getting into the price range of some of the GPS models, or GPS systems. And then you have the software, and that's really what I'm here to talk about a little bit more in detail. So one of the problems with unmanned aircraft is where are the droplets going? And so these aren't designed to replace manned aircraft by any means, but we are now doing precision spot applications for wind control, and the wind's pushing those droplets, 4 or 5 feet off course. So we've got to figure out where to offset the aircraft using all this technology. So this is a video, a positive video effort that went on during the early spring and summer this year of integrating all this stuff. So this is basically starting the job and getting the data in from the AIMS, and the AIMS can be put on helicopters and taking that data, figuring out what the wind speed is, where the intended target is, and where to offset the aircraft. So you're going to see you can pick from a host of wind speeds, but that comes in automatically. You have to pick this because of the simulator. What material are we using? So you can pick from a whole list of materials, and that basically constitutes the physical properties of the product. What are my environmental conditions, humidity, evaporation rate? All that information goes charging into this model, and the system knows where the polygon is. So we're going to go out to the polygon and we're going to do the application, and we can pick the edge. And normally you want to pick the downwind edge from the wind, and so you can see all the swaths are to the northeast of the intended target line. Now, not only does it offset you laterally from the intended target, it also offsets you from the wind vector. So in this case, the wind direction is from the northeast, and you're trying to, in mosquito control, you're trying to flux the product through that intended target of the acres over there to the southwest of the flight lines. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know we're kind of limited on time, but if there's any questions, we're in booth 941, and we're here to help anything you want to talk to us about. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, we put out, I don't know, Bill, how many systems have we put in the field? 11 systems out in the field. So, yeah, we encourage you guys to talk to Bill. Happy to answer more questions on that. I did want to get a chance to talk about some of our third-party devices. So that's another piece of what we're doing going forward is working with a lot of the different third-party devices that are out there, dry gates and some of the other things. And previously, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of our efforts just here recently. Troy's got a booth here as well, and we've been working this year and working towards getting to a point where we can work with the Reby dry gate. We'd like to talk about maybe some other stuff too, maybe even hopper gauge. Feel free to talk a little bit about that, because I'd love to be facing with more third-party devices. Thank you, Todd.
So, I'm Troy Reeby with Reeby Aircraft Improvement. We go through, we have Reeby Hopper Gauge, which if you have a modern air tractor, you know what that is. And we also now have the Reeby Smart Gauge. Our products are ones that we go through and we built them because in our operation we either saw the need for them or we had other requests from other people coming across wanting those products. Our integration that we've been working on with AgPilotX is to be able to get the Reeby Smart Gate to do all the features that it can with the AgPilotX. So this year we've been able to do constant rate application with the AgPilotX, and we're getting this offer going back and forth, and by next Friday we'll have auto on off or the Autoboom feature working with the Smart Gate. And again, we'll continue to work with AgPilotX to get the variable rate application working with them once that becomes available on their side. Another one that I know we've started to do very preliminary work with AgPilotX. The quantity off the their GPS also. If you have any questions, I think it's 716 out there.
Thank you, Troy. Yeah, and that's that's a big part of what we've been doing, and what we're able to do going forward is kind of spread our wings as AgPilotX work with some of these great technologies that are out there, right? Because we can't do all these things on our own, don't want to do all these things on our own. There's great systems that are out there, whether it's software, GPS systems that have been created, model needs and hopper gauges. This is all stuff that we want to work into and let these guys do all the things that they do well. Let us stick to what we do well. We're working on software features, GPS guidance, the tracking piece of it, and the bi-directional communication, getting back and forth with third-party groups. Other things that we're working on are things like weather on our iPad screen. We work closely with Kenman. We want to do some things with them here, hopefully this spring and coming up this year, that we can work a little bit more closely with some of that bi-directional communication that we're working on with others. Variable rate is a piece that's going to come out this year. The first piece of that was really to do the automatic on-off. We finished the automatic on-off. We have those kits now, so we can do the turning the spray on and off on the edges of the field. And of course, the next piece is to integrate that with some of the dry gates that are out there, air repairs as well as Reeby's and others, and want to get feedback from you guys. And then add that variable rate component. Oddly enough, the auto on-off is really the challenging part. The variable rate is not that challenging. I don't know if anybody here does variable rate, but that's just a matter of changing rates in the field. And so, some of the biggest limitations on variable rate is, from my perspective, from our perspective as we see it, is the inability to deliver it successfully to the system, right? And that's the nice thing about how we're doing everything with AgPilotX, is now when we do right, there's rates, they can just be put right in that shape, put into the work order, and they're delivered to the system to work. So when we talk about things that we're doing with AgSync, see them on AgPilotX. That's exactly what we're doing with variable rate. So if you want to create a variable map, it'll just be there and be available in that work order. It won't be a matter of having to load it or put it on a USB stick. It'll just be and see it, again, button pushes, and see that map. There's no need for the pilot to even know, does it have a prescription map or does it not have a prescription map? Is it variable rate or not? Doesn't matter. It's in the work order. It's in the work order. The rate just changes for the different rates in the field. and it'll tell you how much you're going to need for a number of swaths, or how much you need for a number of loads, or how many swaths you can do with a certain size load based on that variability. So all those things are things that are coming in place this year. Some other things that we're looking at, of course, is the tandem flying piece. So 2 pilots or 3 pilots or more can fly in the same fields. Of course, that has to do with getting that data to the cloud and then relaying it to someone else. So if 2 pilots are flying, they're actually using the cloud data in AgHippo. They're both setting up their real-time data. And they're both looking at each other, so they know where the other person is, what the other person has done, use the same exact pattern on the field, so more than one plane can fly based on what the other plane is doing, seeing that data and sharing those AB lines and those patterns. So that's stuff that will evolve as the live tracking piece evolves and the bidirectional communication piece evolves. I think we got through most of the things we wanted to. Yep, right on time. Good. I know we had to rush a lot of that at the end. We're happy to take some questions. We're out of time, but nobody else is coming in here right now. So if you guys have questions or comments or feedback, we'd love to hear that for anybody up here. And of course, we're all around to talk more about anything you guys want to talk about.
We got an interest in using this in timber. So I know the timber contracts, they want to see a specific formatted map, perfect picture. With the G4, I'm using SatLock to print the map off. How do I print the same map off with this product?
So just printing a map. So we do it a number of ways. So AgHippo is the web-based software we use to view logs. So you just go into aghippo.com, you log in your information, and then you can view a log just like you can with a map star. So you can view your logs. It has all imagery background. You can see those logs. You can convert them to whatever format you want. If you want to convert them to a shapefile, or convert them to a KML, or just convert them to a printed map, a PDF map, you can do all that straight through that program. So you can view them there, print them there, decide what you want to print out, how you want to output them. All that capability is in our aghippo.com program.
And then my second question is, if I've got a guy to come help, we've got a G4, and I got this, and we're trying to apply it on a track or a poly, and we'll do poly pattern enter, AB on this edge. It's this degree. That's what I'm used to with the G4. Or he'll say that to me because I'll have this now. So he said, I'll put AB on a 301.5 degree line on this side. How can I, in my, on this, do the same thing so that I can go all the way out on the west side and we can work towards the middle? How do we do that?
The question is, if you've got a SatLock system and you're running a shapefile on a SatLock system, which is job files. So SatLock uses job files, which are unique, but they can be converted to shapefiles through any SatLock. The MapStar can convert them to a shapefile. So if you just convert it to a shapefile, we can read that same exact file in, and then where you're doing enter polypat on a SatLock, you just reach up and touch the polygon with us.
Okay.
You just touch it, hold your finger on it, and then it throws an AB line. And then you can move the AB line around the outside, just like enter polypat. You can pick the edge you want to go. You can see the heading of the edge.
Okay.
And say, okay, I'm picking this edge. My heading is,
As long as the heading is the same as his and it's the same edge,
Right.
you should have no problem.
That's
Same
exactly
swath
right.
and all that.
You'll look to that swath heading, so it'll give you the, if you're doing a 0-180, you say, okay, I'm on a 0-180, I'm on a 10-190. You'll see that, and you can match them up that way. And so that way you can cross-pollinate those systems. As long as you use the same heading, same shape file, there you go. Anything else?
Pondering gate? Pondering gate?
Pondering gate, great question. We've been talking with him. That is on our priority list. Very interested to know from you guys, who uses the Pondering gate. Do we have others that use the Pondering gate? Because he's pretty eager to get there. He's asked us. He's supplied some material for us. we do want to get there, and we do plan that to add that piece of it. It is on our to-do list. And that's, you know, it's a matter of time. There's no question we'll do it as long as he's agreeable as we go forward. We'll add that hopefully in 2021. I want to believe that it is on our priority list. Yeah, it was, you know. Anything else? Any other questions?